Hmm, that's interesting. What's up, everybody? Today we got a 2016 Tahoe or Suburban. I don't know. Tahoe, probably. And complaint is the radio screen keeps going out. And when it goes out, the radio stops playing. No music. Uh, it says sometimes it works fine for a while, and then sometimes, like today, it's acting up pretty good. So, Uh, from what he said, they've already tried putting a screen in it, and same thing. Still does the same thing. So we're gonna see if we can't figure out what's wrong with this thing. Okay, getting our pre-scan done, we see the amplifier has a checksum failure. I see this a lot, and it rarely causes issues, but we'll keep that in mind. Um, Here's where we're really looking at here. This most bus U code is current. Then there's a lost column with a LIN bus. Uh, let's see. Most enable circuit, short to ground. Currently it says it's history, but keep that one in mind as well. And then radio controls, LIN bus, history. So this is the radio controls. This is what it's talking about, the LIN bus. So it sees a LIN bus failure. There's a LIN bus code in the radio as well as this most bus. Okay, as you can see, the radio's turning on and off. I had to turn the ignition back on, but let's see. Still nothing there. Look at that. But there we got camera there. Does the camera ever go off? I don't think so. So the screen's working. Let's see. Okay, off. Camera working. And as you see, we just lost radio controls. I can hear static playing. Okay, camera. So the camera is able to overdo whatever else is going on. Yeah, nothing. Okay, so in radio data, there is a few PIDs that kind of helps with this. Okay, and what you're going to be looking for is number of most communication breaks. See, we're at 208. That number should be 0. And as you see, it's went up since it's been running. What this is counting is the number of times the circuit is faulted, basically. Okay. And if you look at the last working mode list, mode number 1 is HMI, and everything else is unrecognized. So the radio basically is only saying it can talk to that. Okay, I'm a little wrong right here. We shouldn't so much be worried and caring about this last working most ID of node 1. The node 1, 2, 3, 4, that list doesn't really matter. What we should be looking at is this data PID that's right above it, called surrogate most mastered node upstream position, and the data PID is showing 2. So we're looking at position 2, which is the HMI, and it is saying the last working node is the HMI, which is in position 2. So I'm a little rusty on these. It's been a while since I've done one of them. And that's kind of the more important data PID that we should be looking at. The node number 1, 2, 3, 4 is, I guess, if it has multiple breaks, like if it had multiple failures, it would kind of list those out. But currently, we've got one break. It is saying it's in position 2, which is the HMI, which is kind of a clue that I should have picked up on, but I didn't, so I kind of went a little around of a circle for the rest of this, but I think there's some good info in here, so just keep watching. And it can talk to the HMI. Anything after the HMI, it can't see. So, if you don't know about this system, the MOST bus is a ring system. It's 2 rings, actually. One transmits and one receives, and if I remember correctly, they go opposite directions. One goes this direction, one goes that direction, and that's kind of how it determines where the last known node is. So we will pull up a diagram and see what our mode number 2 is, and kind of see if that's something we can easily get to and check. With the MOST bus, it's really easy to actually unplug a module and bypass the ring and see if it continues and like gets everything else working. So let's get a wiring diagram about this and we'll go over that. Okay, so we got our diagram. This is the control circuit and this is the ring. And they do both travel in the same direction. So it travels this direction here. Back to the radio. The radio is the master. And one thing I like to do is, you can see these little square boxes with these numbers and letters in it. These are RPO codes. I like to look at my RPO list that's in the glove box and basically confirm which ones I have, kind of mark out the ones that I don't have. So like media disc player, could be a TG5 or U42. So I'm basically just looking at TG5, right there it is. So we've definitely got a media player, the HMI. Do we have a I06 or 5? Yep, there we go. Come on, focus. I06. So we knew we had that one. Audio amplifier, UQA. Do we got a UQA? No. Oh yeah, we do. Over here, UQA. And then of course the instrument cluster, we're gonna have that UDD. Okay, so we've got every one of these on there. Now the crazy thing is the one thing I don't like about the MOST diagnostic thing is, in theory, the radio is supposed to talk to each module, and each module has a node number. So like the radio is the master, the first module in the list is the media player. So this should be node 1. The HMI should be node 2. But it said it couldn't talk to this. It had unrecognized state, but it could talk to the HMI. It could not talk to the amplifier, and it said it couldn't talk to the cluster. So let's go back to the car and kind of check a few things and see what makes sense with this and what don't. Well, here's the carnage of what it takes to get the media player out. And yeah, this is all loose too. You had to pull this out. Kind of crazy, ain't it, to get to this thing. So I attempted to use the Pico to try to figure this thing out. The MOST system I've never scoped one of the networks with it yet, and this signal is very different from anything data-wise you'd see. I even have the special probe for flex ray for the Pico. Didn't help. The amplitude of the signal is like 500 millivolts is what I was getting. So I don't know if there's a fault with the system or if that's just how it works. I do have another truck here that's got a MO system, I think. If I do, later I'm going to scope it, and when I get some time I'm going to scope it and see if it's the same weird signal. But I do have something that's going to help me figure this thing out. And if you go by the diagram, you would think that you could basically ohm check this similar to any CAN bus, but you can't. When this enters a module, it is terminated. It's done. There's a separate thing that outputs signal to the next module. So you can't directly like ohm check it or anything. You get open loop, and so I checked to make sure I wasn't shorted to ground or anything like that. And coming out of the radio, the media player, and the HMI, I've got no shorts to ground or anything like that I've found yet. What I do have that will let me ohm check the circuit and verify it is a little special tool. Most people probably don't have access to it. It is the Bosch Most Bus Diagnostic Toolkit. Yeah, if you can order this from GM off their special tool website. And what it is basically the little plugs to bypass things. Like, see this one here? See how it's just a jumper loop and then a little power tap? This is for the turn on, to make sure the module in question is getting a turn on signal. So what you would do is like this one fits the media player, so you would unplug the media player, plug this in, recheck your data in your scan tool, and see if your fault goes away. Basically, see if your radio and everything starts working like it should. So what I'm going to do is basically unplug one module at a time, bypass it until I get signal working. If I don't get signal working, then I'll have it to where I can check the circuit to know if the circuit's good or bad. And if the circuit checks fine and bypassing the modules don't get me up and running correctly as far as what my data reads, probably looking at a bad radio. But we're not going to call a radio yet. We're going to see if we can't figure this out. It's very time consuming. As you can see, there's a lot of this dash got to come apart just to get to the media player. Luckily though, the media player basically sits right here. Right below it, right there, this is the radio. So luckily once you get to this, the radio is also right there too. Real easy to get to. The HMI is down here. Let me get some light here. See that blue plug, that gray plug right there next to it? That's the one with the data in it. And then this gray or blue cable, that is the video cable that goes up to the screen. Now granted, if for instance we had video issues but didn't have a Most Bus network code, I would be leaning towards a bad screen, a bad video cable, or a bad HMI. When these systems first come out, we was warranting HMIs a whole lot because they would go bad. But we wouldn't have the most bus code to go with it. The most bus is kind of its own little circuit. So let's start unplugging some modules and bypassing them and see what we come up with. And if I find something interesting, I'll bring you guys back along. So this is what we're kind of doing. We're just, see how this is plugged in here? That's basically looping our data. We got the key on and still no radio display. So obviously that's not the problem. We can either plug that back up or leave it like that. I'm just going to leave it like that for now. So if I go to the next on the list is HMI, which is up under there. Now the HMI is responsible for the screen. So I actually want to leave it for last. That way, if it is one of these other modules, the screen will work when I bypass the other module. But yet if I bypass this, bypass that, the screen's never going to work when the HMI is bypassed. So I'm going to go over to the amplifier and do it next. It's also pretty easy. So in the back, you take this side cover off, the amp is actually hiding right here behind the jack. You can kind of see in there a little bit. And right in there is our plugs. So we can just get in here, unplug. Let's see, that's not the one. Nope, it's down here on the bottom. There it is. There's our plug for it. And most of these plugs are color coded, so like brown, brown. So there we go. Got that plugged in. Let's see. We still have no radio. Let's see if we can get this thing up and going. Which the cluster, you see how it's got audio off. At a certain point, when this thing falls out, it just shuts down. So it's kind of like a protection thing. It'll just shut it down if it can't make things work. So we still got audio off. Let's see, can we wake it up? No. Okay. So not looking good for the amplifier. I'll turn this off again, let this go to sleep real good, and try it again. Usually this has got to turn off. So I'll let it go to sleep and try it again. Alright, so I let it go to sleep, tried the amplifier, it didn't work. So what I want to do, I can actually test the HMI by bypassing it. I won't have a screen, but what I'll have is audio, and I should have display on the cluster. So I should be able to control the radio from the cluster and the steering wheel controls. So let's see if we get anything back. Okay. We got FM now. Before it was saying off. Let's see. Not really going to get a channel. Oh yeah. We do. I don't know if y'all can hear it. There we go. Okay, so we've got audio right now. Does that confirm the HMI? Possibly. Let's give it a little bit. Because he would say it would kind of act up sometimes and then start working. So with it being an intermittent fault, clearly right now we still have no display because the HMI controls the display. But we got audio, and before the audio would cut out once this fault happens. So as of right now, it looks good. It looks promising. What I can do is kind of put this thing together just a little bit, enough to drive it, and see if it stays good and working. So let's do that. Let's try to go for a drive. So since we got audio, which I don't know if you can hear that or not, but I just got on station that's playing static. This is the waveform that I'm getting out of the radio on the most bus. As you can see, there's a lot going on here. If we slow this time base down, yeah. Yeah, that's a whole lot of craziness. And that is using the Pico lead for doing flex ray and stuff like that. So it's made for high speed stuff. That is just a crazy waveform. And like I'm in both sides of it, but even if I unplug the one side, oh, get out of there, and give it a ground, like it's still the same signal. Still a strange signal. And as you can see, we're on the 500 millivolt scale. So as far as using a Pico to diagnose the most bus, I'm sure somebody can do it. I can't make anything out of it. It just looks like a big mess. But clearly it's working because I've got my display on my cluster working. I got controls on the steering wheel working. I've got volume, picking up radio stations. So far it's looking good that the HMI is bad. So now, if we look at our codes in the radio, you see everything is history. Even though it can't talk to the HMI, it doesn't matter, it doesn't care. It is saying the circuit, the bus, is good. Everything with the bus is fine now. No current code. We'll go over here to our data. We'll get down here to these nodes and see what they say now. So, it still says unrecognized state. Last working most node amplifier, which is kind of strange. See, I don't like how they do this. This is rarely accurate. Okay, so right here, this is what I was talking about. I don't really trust this data a whole lot. Is saying the last known module basically that it can talk to is the amplifier. But in our ring diagram, it goes media player, HMI, amplifier, and cluster back to the radio. So why is it not saying that we can talk to the cluster? It should be saying that. But like I said, the more important thing is the last position. Right here is showing upstream position number 3. So kind of what this is showing is that it can see 3 modules on the bus. So there's the media, the amplifier, and the cluster all on the bus. So there's 3 that it can talk to. So like I say, I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to what it thinks the last working module is, because right now everything is working correctly other than the things the HMI controls, and it doesn't know that the cluster is the last thing in the loop. So it's kind of stupid. Accurate. But we see here we're at 1, on our most brakes. So basically what that is talking like is packets missing or breaks in the lines. So the reason why there's one is because I unplugged and plugged this back up. If I unplug it again, you see we get two. Plug it back up, we get our audio back, and everything's all good. So what I could do is check pin fitment on the HMI. These things, with that really fast data speed and everything that this thing runs, I've fixed a lot of these with pin tension issues, just cleaning terminals, replacing terminals. So I'm going to check the pin tension on it, may even give it a clean and plug it back up and see what happens with it. Let's take our 64 and basically I'm just going to check all of these. And yeah, they all feel pretty good. Yeah. So let's plug this back in and see what happens with our audio. Do we get audio back? No, we've not got audio back. Let's unplug that, plug this back in. There's our audio back. So, well, I mean, as long as this thing got its wake-up signal, which it should, so this would be the test the wake-up signal. And really what is happening is each module puts out a 12 volts on this. The radio on ignition on, the wake-up is it grounding every module on this wire for 100 milliseconds. That wakes them all up, and then these all go back to 12 volts. So I should see 12 volts here, but that's not telling me if the module itself is putting it out. It means that other modules on the network is putting out 12 volts. So it's kind of a useless test. But more importantly, you can hear the static. And we unplug this and plug in our HMI. Give it a second. We still have no audio. So is there any other things we could check? We could check all of our powers and grounds to this thing to make sure everything is good with it. But I can tell you these are pretty known for going bad. Yeah, I've seen enough. I'm calling it HMI, putting this thing back together. Calling it a day on this sucker. So, I don't know if he's going to replace it or not, because it's not cheap. So, we'll see. I'll probably just post this video and be done with it, but if he does give me the go ahead, I will add that in here. So, see you later.